Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jefreena, and I'm here to present my project to you, which is determining the challenges that blind screen reader users experience when accessing social networking websites. And of course, I would not have been able to do this project without the help of my faculty advisors and mentors. Unfortunately, not all of them could be here, but we do have Dr. Lisa Vetter here. I also have the help of James Jones, my former advisor, Dr. Ravi Kuber, and Dr. Charles Nicholas. I'd also like to thank my friends in the back over there for helping me and supporting me throughout this project. So as I begin, I have one question for all of you. How many of you actually have an account on a social networking website? I see a lot of hands in the room. And due to popular demand, we know that social networking is important in our culture today. We can see that all of us in the room are of different race, gender, religious background, ethnicity, geographical background even. And the internet is just the same. It's a very diverse group of users and does not discriminate against one group. However, there is one group that has been discriminated against on a specific type of website, and that is the social networking websites. That's because web developers fail to address the issues that blind users face on these websites because they focus on the average user or the sighted user. My goal was to identify some of those challenges that blind users face on these websites. And in order to do so, I took an interdisciplinary approach. Two disciplines that I focused on were information technology and anthropology. I used information technology because we're talking about web development, how to create a page, how to put information on that page for different types of users. This is the technical aspect. From the social aspect, we're talking about online communities, how people interact and learn from each other online, not just online, but also in a physical sense. We want to know how people interact and relate with each other. We learned that people want to feel a sense of community and a sense of belonging in real life, and that carries over into the online world. For my methodologies, I used two different types. One, of course, is Alan Repko's 10-step process, which many of you are familiar with. And I also used the two bridging strategies from Matthew Miller and Veronica Boinx-Mencia's article, specifically creating compounds and bridging the explanation-action gap. The steps and procedures, my compound concept is human-centered computing, my major. It incorporates both the technical aspect and social aspect of issues such as accessibility issues for the blind. I've taken classes such as computer science, information systems, anthropology, and some of the other social sciences like modern language and linguistics, media communications, and even philosophy. The coursework and material that I've learned in these classes have helped me greatly throughout this project. In addition to my coursework, I also did an extensive literature search and review to learn more about the problems that have already been identified and that are out there, any laws, or even types of technologies that are being used by the blind users. Over here we have a picture of a Braille keyboard. Blind users are actually able to read Braille. There's little pins, I don't know if you can see them, that pop up for every type of word that is being read by the screen reader, so it's a new Braille word every time. After I did my literature search, I also conducted interviews of blind users themselves. I interviewed 14 different users and to gain perspective of what their experience was like using these social networking websites. And then I created a set of guidelines that web developers could use specifically for social networking web development, not all websites in general. The results from the literature search, I did identify 6 main issues. I'll explain a few of them, one of which was lack of awareness. There is a law, it's called Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act, that enforces all federal agencies to make their web pages and technologies accessible to blind users. However, this is not enforced on social networking website developers. And so those developers are just unaware of what they can do or what the problems are that blind users can face. So getting awareness out there is one of the key steps to the solution. Another issue is alternate text. When there's an image or a graph on a page, you and I can see it and understand the content on that image, but a blind user cannot. The only way they can understand is if there's a written description of what that image is or what the numbers on the graphs are like. And a lot of web developers fail to add the alternate text, and so blind users are just stuck with an image that they can't understand. So that's one of the key problems that was already identified, but still very rarely fixed on these web pages. With my interviews, I did interview a wide variety of people, ranging in age, employment status, and even where they lived. You can find that they're all very independent. Actually, none of the blind users lived with the help of sighted users. They all lived mostly with either other blind people, and if it was someone who was sighted, it was their child, not someone that they were dependent on. They all were very tech savvy, I should say. They all used different types of screen readers. Many of them had used them for over 10 years, different operating systems, web browsers, and they were all very fast with navigating through pages. They used quick links, shortcuts, special keys. They all had accounts on several social networking websites rather than just one, and were, I should say, Facebook addicts, just like any of us would be. They would log on more than a few times a day, actually. Some of the problems that they explained was, one of which was actually creating the account. A lot of the users, actually more than half, mentioned that they needed the help of a sighted user to create the account for them. This is a big problem. You want your user to be able to create their account on their own and feel independent. Another issue was confusing navigation of edit boxes. So say, for example, you're writing a comment or putting a post on Facebook, and then your friend adds a comment to it, and then your other friend comments on the comment. This becomes a very complex set of navigation that a screen reader, can't keep up with, and it's very complex to navigate through the different types of text on a page. So improving information architecture on a page itself to make it simple and clear is another key step. As far as the guidelines, I created 4 that are just for the account creation process of a social networking website, and 6 that have to do with the actual information on the page, and I'll explain a few of them. On the account creation process, we have audio captures, and I'm sure many of you have seen a CAPTCHA image, which is a set of letters and numbers that are all blurred, and you have to identify what those numbers are. For a blind user, they have a fuzzy audio file, which you'd have to listen to and identify what the audio file is saying. However, a lot of the blind users complained that they had to listen to the audio file 10 to 20 times in order to get the answer correct, because the audio file was just so bad. Improving those while still maintaining security is one of the key things that you could do. As far as the actual pages, only one user said that they were able to use a chat functionality on a web page. So improving chat functionality and also adding sort of a live chat help desk, such as that one you can find on Amazon, was one of the things that users requested, so that they didn't have to send an email for technical help and wait for a response. They could get immediate answers for some of the small issues that they had. As I conclude this project, I thought about some of the things that I would have done or changed during this process. One thing that I would have liked to do was actually understand how to use a screen reader myself. I might have blindfolded myself and navigated through the web pages just as a blind user would have. Another thing that I would like to have known was how the online participation has changed the physical social networks of blind users. Have they increased their social networks physically because of their online participation? I really would like to know this over a long-term study. Finally, I want to learn more about mobile technology. All the blind users that are interviewed had cell phones, PDAs, used all sorts of mobile technology, and preferred to use their mobile technology over sitting at a computer desk to access their social networking websites. So I want to know what's mobile technology doing correctly that we could use to improve our own desktop types of technology. This concludes my presentation. I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I open the floor out to you for questions.
Always some questions. So did you find in your research that there was anybody who created sort of a standard to deal with these issues? And what I mean by standard is a framework like, always follow this guideline to make sure that these blind users could be able to access it if you follow this guideline, so to speak, then?
The standards that are out there is in fact Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act, but the problem is no one enforces the standard. The standard is there. There's also compatibility tests that you can do on your HTML code, CSS code, and you can even, Section 508, validate your page. You can submit your URL of your page to a validator, and it will tell you all the errors in your code that you can fix. It'll even identify if there's an image with no alternate text. The problem is nobody validates their pages. I'm sure you've seen on some of the pages at the bottom, some web pages, it'll say W3C, XHTML compliant or CSS compliant. Those are validators. That proves that the code on this page has been validated for accessibility issues and standardization, but not everyone does that. That's the problem.
Well, thank you for doing this work. I think it's probably going to be very helpful when you share it with people. I'm interested in knowing how you identified the people you interviewed. I didn't see an N or a number up there. Maybe it was there and I missed it.
Okay.
And how the IRB process worked for you.
Okay. How I identified the users, I contacted and physically called Maryland School for the Blind, National Federation of the Blind, American Council for the Blind, and even some schools in Minnesota, so I wasn't just restricting myself to East Coast. And I told them about my project, and many of them, even when I called, the secretary herself was like, I'm a blind user, I'd be interested in this project, I'm on Facebook, you know, like that kind of thing. The users themselves were very encouraging and wanted to participate because they felt that this was an important issue for them. So instead of trying to recruit the users themselves, I posted what my research was about and asked them to come to me because then I knew that it was a topic that they were passionate about. With the IRB process...
What's the number you finally ended
14.
up with? 14. So your percentages reflected 14 people.
Yes.
Okay.
With the IRB process, I went through the social and behavioral research classes that I took and used that information as I proceeded with my project.
But you got approval?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Since President Obama recently visited the Facebook community, what kinds of things do you think could be done? I mean, this is going a little further beyond this. What kinds of things do you think could be done to bring more attention to this problem? Because I didn't even know anything about it until I started helping you with your proposal, and just to bring greater awareness to this issue.
As like Section 508 is out there, if there is a way to make the law enforceable on not just federal agencies, but also major corporations, which would include sites like Facebook, LinkedIn, then that would be one step forward to enforcing these issues. Another thing is, even if it's not enforced, but to spread awareness of these issues, maybe web developers have to take a course on accessibility issues to be certified for accessibility. That could be another step towards just spreading the word about the challenges. That's the hardest part of this project because people just simply don't care enough to deal with blind users because they just assume there are not that many blind users anyway. In some of the classes that I've taken, we learn about the 80-20 rule. If you can satisfy 80% of your users, you're good to go. And most of blind users fall within the 20%. And so that 80-20 rule, if it's applied, it still negatively affects the blind users.
Can I just follow up with another? I mean, in terms of blind users versus other physically disabled folks who are trying to access technology, do you get, I don't know if you know that much about other populations, but comparatively, do you get a sense that they have even greater obstacles accessing technology than other physically disabled populations?
As far as accessing technology, of the 14 people that I did interview, they seemed very technically apt and they knew what they were doing. In fact, some of them I even heard that they customized their screen readers so it could speak faster because they were navigating through so fast the screen reader was slowing them down. So they are very technically apt, and I don't think that technology was a big obstacle for them. It was more so that the way the technology was presented to them as far as content layout or navigation. That's what was hindering their efficiency rather than the technology itself.
Thank you, Jefreena.